What comes to mind when I say the words Gumby D?
uh, 12 years old. I mean, listen, here's the actual truth. When you're a kid, uh, things are a lot more literal. So, I think what it is that at the time I had a Gumby hairstyle, and my middle name is Drew. And you think about all these people with LL Cool J, Cool Mo D, just all these different people with just it seemed like the very hip hop name to have. So Gumby D, I was like, why not? I've had my entire career. I've had a whole bunch of mishaps in terms of having probably the world's worst nicknames ever. But why end the trend? Why not turn Cardinal Richelieu into Kardinal Offishall and screw up the entire hip hop industry with trying to have an intellectual name? So here we are, and I still have one of the world's most complicated hip hop names for no reason.
Cause is that the Three Musketeers?
No, Cardinal Richelieu. It came from the political testament of Cardinal Richelieu. Richelieu. He was actually a tyrant.
Oh,
He was a villain, not a good guy at all. But kind of how he remained in power. One of the things that I liked was that he said that he didn't want for any of the people that lived, I guess, in I don't know what it was, a kingdom or a township, wherever he was ruling, he wanted everybody to kind of look at him like he was on the same level, not like he was up on a pedestal, you know what I'm saying, like he was part of some type of monarchy, but he, in a very bad way, for for evil intentions, he wanted for people's guards to be let down and everybody embrace him. And what that did was empower him to do a whole bunch of, dark stuff. And I think what I did was I took his political testament, which was kind of the steps of how he remained in power. I took that and, I flipped it, and I wanted to use those different things for the power of good. And, a bunch of those different things from the political testament is what I use in my everyday life.
Was that a moment? Like, do you remember that moment when you had that realization that this is the name you wanted to have and here's why?
Yeah, because I was tired of being Kool-Aid, to be honest. And as much as people are probably listening and laughing and they're like, your name was Kool-Aid, the funny thing was there was more than one Kool-Aid within the city. And I was like, oh, for God's sakes, I can't even have a bad name to myself. So I was just trying to come up with something here. And here's something that I'm sure you've probably observed before is, there's probably a Little Wayne in France, and there's probably a Little Wayne in Japan, or, there's, I think one of the hardest things to do, especially in hip hop, is to come up with a name that nobody else anywhere in the world has, and it's very tough. But that's what I was trying to do. Was I was trying to create this name that only I had, so that no matter where I went on the globe, when they said Kardinal Offishall, they knew there was only one.
I never, this is embarrassing to say, being a great fan of yours growing up in Newfoundland, watching you on Much Music, I never considered for a second that wasn't your name. I was just like, this guy has the coolest name I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well, you see, that almost goes to prove my point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess mission accomplished. Mission accomplished.
So it's 2001. You're signed to MCA in the U.S. You released Quest for Fire, Firestarter Volume 1. How do you describe Toronto's rep in the hip hop scene at that moment?
Oh man, vibrant, energetic. I think in 2001 there were some very pivotal things that were happening in not just entertainment but also in sports as well. So you have to understand, this is now when Vince Carter is heralded as possibly the greatest dunker of all times. So Vince Carter is becoming a household name after the dunk contest. At the time, his name was Little X. Now we know him as Director X, who is, directed for myself, Usher, Sean Paul, Drake, et cetera, et cetera. He's coming into his own, moving out of the shadows of Hype Williams. He's now, becoming the go-to director. And then, for music, like, me signing the deal in LA with MCA, all these different things kind of happened at the same time. And, I think what it did was it started to engage the city in a way that we hadn't been engaged before. And of course, if you're talking about domestically, so in Canada, this is also not too long after Northern Touch, which was, in terms of rap, the first time in history that the entire country was engaged and felt, invested in one particular song, because you had some guys that, not as far east as you, but you had some guys from the East Coast, myself, Shockley, and Thrust. But then you had, Checkmate, Red One, and Misfit that came together and, created this incredible moment, this moment in time. So it's just like all these things, happening around the same time. It was just building and building. And I think what's incredible was, at that time, then, starting to see my stuff play on, on the MTVs and the VH1s and, whatever else at the time globally. Like, it was an electrifying time for hip hop. And a lot of things were happening at a rapid pace. So it was an amazing time that I'm not sure there will ever be a time like that. You know what I mean? Like, there might be something similar that is a different iteration, but it was incredible because at that time there were just a lot of firsts happening. And I think what it did was, even for people outside of the entertainment industry living in Canada, it's the first time that, you might be turning on the TV, or you might literally go to the movies and you're like, wait a minute, in the soundtrack, is that Kardinal? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, or you might, have them say, I don't know, that was Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. And our next video up is, Kardinal Offishall. Like, this is the first time that people are seeing the integration of Canadian hip hop, I guess within the ethos of, like, just, I don't know, like American hip hop, for lack of a better description.
But and it sounds like what you're saying here is it was a bit of a long time coming.
We think so. Canadian, you know what I'm saying? Like, Canadians definitely think so. And we knew it. And that was my mindset leading up to that point, was that I was like, listen, we got to put Canada on the map. Like, I'm, respect, like, a lot of my, my favorite artists, MC Light. I remember she had a song called, Kick This One for Brooklyn. You had Ice-T and, of course, NWA and all those guys that were, like, making Compton and Los Angeles super famous. You had just at the very same time, you had Nelly that came out just before me with Country Grammar. You know what I mean? And him all of a sudden putting the Midwest and their culture on a certain platform. So I think at that time, I was super gung-ho on, like, how could I represent and make sure that, that Toronto and subsequently Canada was able to get that same kind of shine,
Well, we could talk about the record Quest for Fire, Firestarter Volume 1 all day. So many of the big classic hits are on that record. Bacardi Slang, as I mentioned, Money Jane, Hustlin', Old Time Killin'. Can you pick one for me and give me a story about one of those songs, like a backstory to one of those songs?
Old Time Killin', out of all of the songs, was probably the biggest key that unlocked so many levels. It's like a video game. When you get that secret code and all of a sudden it just unlocks all these levels that you never heard about or you didn't know existed. That's exactly what Old Time Killin' was for me. I became friends with 50 Cent and ended up going on tour with him because of the Old Time Killin' video. Like, he watched it. And I remember when we first met, this is when he was, like, wearing bulletproof vest, entourage of 100, shot 9 times, probably the most gangster artist in hip hop. And when I met him, he's like, yo, can you teach me how to do that dance that you do in your video? And I'm like, seriously? And it's like, I remember we were at a hip hop conference together called the Mix Show Power Summit. Every single time that I saw him, he's always like, man, Cardi, you got to show me that dance. And I'm just like, this is super weird that, you know, one of the most sought after artists in the world is a fan and, you know, literally was drawn into my world because of the random fun that I was having in the video. But, you know, that song also was the key to me becoming friends and working with Pharrell Williams. You know, Pharrell was here in Toronto promoting NERD at the time, and we had met each other some little secret back room at a venue downtown called the Courthouse. And I remember I was like going into the whatever VIP entrance, and he was coming out, and we kind of just like did this kind of a thing face to face, you know, where we just met up like literally at the same time. I was like, Pharrell, what up? I'm like, yo, I'm Kardinal. I'm a, you know, big fan, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh man, I love that record that you just put out, Old Time Killin. Yo, that's my favorite joint. And I was like, really? I was like, well, yo, I love what you're doing with the clips and grinding. And I remember he was like, yo, I would love to put you on the remix for grinding. And here's the thing, anybody that knows anything about like, not even just hip hop, but the entertainment industry, people say that stuff all the time. Like, hey Tom, what's up? Good to meet you. Hey, next time you're in LA, come see me.
Yeah,
like,
no, I'm supposed to be at like 13 dinners right now and on like 33 albums, you know, in the past year. Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, to my surprise, you know, one day I'm at Shocklaire's studio, and you know, a FedEx, because that's how long ago it was, a FedEx call, and I opened the FedEx, and it's a Pro Tools session on DVD. It's a Pro Tools session for grinding from Pharrell with a return to sender packaging. And sure enough, it was for me to do the grinding remix. You know what I'm saying? So I remember I did it, like I wrote it and recorded it and sent it back within a half an hour. Like that's how stoked I was, you know, to receive that. So Old Time Killin, I mean,
what I find funny about you talked about the success of Old Time Killin in the video and how 50 Cent loved the video and he wanted, you know, but like I had heard that you weren't sure about that video.
Oh, that's for sure. Well, it's because you have to understand, all right, so at the time, the exchange rate on the dollar is terrible. It's literally like, you know, $1 US, you're getting $1.50 Canadian. So, you know, I think at the time, you know, it was the biggest video budget I ever had. I think it might have been like $125,000 or $150,000. And, you know, one of my closest friends, Little X, is directing it. The only thing is, up until the night before, we had no idea what we were shooting. There was no treatment. There was no storyboard. There was nothing. So I remember, like, we're like, bro, we need to know what we're shooting. And I remember he emailed us, and the email said, it's going to be colorful. It's going to be energetic. It's going to represent. Literally, it was like 3 sentences. And we were like, the hell does that mean? So imagine, like, when I arrived there on set and I saw what he had built, I think I was probably, I don't know, like, I mean, I was in awe and I was in shock. And yes, it worked out. But here's the other thing. The particular style that he used and that he architected, like it was, you know, that was the blueprint for Diddy videos, for Usher videos, for Sean Paul. But that kind of the structure and that style, he first used it on Old Time Killin. So, you know, looking back on it, you're like, oh, like, you know, it's absolutely insane. But yeah, at the time we were just like, dude, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But it all worked out, man. And it was interesting because the whole city definitely came down to that as well. Like probably everybody I knew was at that video shoot. So it was something. 23 hours too. That's why we ended up doing a piece of Maxine at the end. We were there for almost a full day for sure.
You know, part of what makes this album, I want to play something for you right now. Part of what makes this album, and I think you as an artist very important, is the way you weave your Jamaican identity into your rap style, right? And you've always credited Michie Mee for inspiring you. So I got to speak with Michie recently about her most recent record, and she said something really interesting about the industry's early reaction to her style that I wanted to play for you. Take a listen to this.
It wasn't accepted by everybody, even in in going to the US and doing it there, it was the thing that made me different, but it was deemed as something lower level or not up to par, but yet unique, but not ready for marketing. So it was very hard to convince everyone that this was something that was going to last, especially this long.
So how does her, I mean, I can see you nodding there. For people on the radio, I can see you nodding there. How does what you're hearing there from her experience compare to your own experience?
It's identical. It's identical. When when I signed to MCA, a gentleman, and the funny thing is I still work with him just in a different capacity in 2021, but the guy that signed me, Naeem Ali, definitely a visionary and definitely has, in A&R terms, like the golden ear, you know what I'm saying? To where he's got an ear for things that most people won't, they won't pick up on certain things. So he had been following me for a long time. And I remember when I got there, though, the rest of the company, if you know about America, they are definitely, in terms of their culture, they would much rather be a monolith than a cultural mosaic. They are not interested in having a bunch of different cultures come together to make up who they are as a people. So, me clinging very hard to my Caribbean roots, they're like, I don't know, like, they're just used to straight up and down American hip hop. So it's like, they're like, put them on tour with Shaggy. So I remember like my first American tour, I was out with Shaggy just because he was Jamaican. Like, so I'm opening up for him. He's singing all these songs like, Angel.
It wasn't me.
Wasn't me. And like, I mean, listen, that album went diamond. So it actually was an incredible experience. Because I remember when his album wasn't working, like that's when I first got to the label. But then literally they didn't know what to do with me. So they're just like, I don't know, they're Jamaican, so send them out together. But she's exactly right. That's how they looked at it back then. They did not know how to market it. They didn't necessarily know where I fit in. But I think eventually what happened was the people that were pushing the needle, the people that were in tuned to hip-hop's history and the culture, those were the people that embraced me off top, and that's why they loved it. That's why I got to work with so early. When you think about it, off my first major label album, I got to work with Timberland, with Busta Rhymes, with Pharrell, with 50 Cent, and just a plethora of other people. And I think it's because, when you start to look at the history of hip hop, never mind the fact that, Kool Herc, who many credit as, helping to create hip hop, the fact that he was Jamaican and brought, the sound system culture from Jamaica to the Bronx, and that gave birth to hip hop. But there's also so many people that actually have Caribbean lineage within their family, and people don't know about it. So if you think about, LL Cool J, his grandmother is from Barbados. If you think about, the late great Heavy D, his family is Jamaican. Pete Rock's family is Jamaican. I just found out Funkmaster Flex's family is Jamaican. So there's so many people within that actually like my whole style and my vibe, like it resonated heavily with them. You know what I'm saying? It just so happened that I was somebody that, at that time was pushing it to the forefront because that's just who I was,
If you're just tuning in, my guest is Kardinal Offishall, who is celebrating the 20-year anniversary of his sophomore album, Quest for Fire, Firestarter Volume 1, and his recent appointment to the Senior Vice President of A&R of Universal Music Canada. My name's Tom Power. This is Q. So I listened to the episode that you were on of my colleague Ty's This Is Not a Drake podcast released last year. And I wanted to play a little clip of that. Just take a listen to this.
I literally was exploding around the entire planet except in my own country. And it's like I saw them have to play catch up. Seems to be doing very well everywhere else, so I suppose we should probably support him now. And that hurt because the first time I got signed to an American label, my first song, the hook said, "Everybody knows it's the T-Dot." My whole narrative has been one that has taken my city and my country and put it on my shoulders, and I endured ridicule for years. And then when we had this moment, we didn't even celebrate it here.
That's my guest, Kardinal Offishall. A very poignant moment from CBC's This Is Not a Drake podcast. And you say you saw the Canadian music industry having to play catch up. You're now part of the industry that you're critiquing in that clip. You're part of the Canadian music industry. If there's one tangible thing that you could do as a music exec to ensure what happened to you, what you're describing in that clip, never happens to another Black Canadian artist, what would it be?
Oh, well, that's a tough one. The interesting thing is the things that really need fixing are not up to me. If we're being completely honest.
Yeah.
You know, being able to be promoted to a position of, I think, more opportunity, more, I tread lightly when I say power, but, more influence. I think that, I can have greater conversations and maybe provide a perspective that will allow people to see the industry with a different lens. I think those things are what I have the capabilities of doing. But currently, the people that can actually make a difference for Black Canadian musicians, it's kind of up to those folks ultimately. But what I will say is one of the things that I've always wanted to do and that I've been doing and chipping away at slowly but surely since I became an exec is it's really about changing the infrastructure, changing the way that we've always kind of just done business as usual here. And I think something that I have control of and that I have done and that I think will, history will, only time will tell, and we'll see as years go by. But one of the biggest things that we haven't done as a industry here in Canada is be able to offer the same amount of resources that another country would. I mean, it's not to say that I didn't try and get a Canadian deal. It's just that if we're being completely honest, the entire offering that they gave me here in Canada didn't even equal up to half of my advance that I got in America. And for those people that don't know what that means, an advance really just means an advance on profits that you get to put in your pocket up front. So, and listen, I don't mind talking numbers, but it's like, put it this way. I think I may have gotten offers in Canada of like 50,000 Canadian or 60,000 Canadian. And when I went to the States, like my first deal, my first album, which was, that's the interesting thing. Firestarter Volume 1 is classified as a recompilation album because 90% of the songs were done before I even got to the label. So these weren't even brand new songs that I went to the studio and, wrote and recorded. These are songs that I had done from before that went from demo stage into like, final mix and mastered songs. But it's like, for that recompilation album, I got like $500,000 USD. So I'm just saying that to show you like the disparity between the two, you know what I'm saying, in terms of like what we were offering here in Canada compared to why people left and went down to the US. I don't want that to happen anymore. And I think what I've been doing is being able to make sure that, superstar artists that are Canadian, that are brand new, that whatever they can offer in America or whatever they can offer in the UK or whatever else, that we can match and or beat that. And make sure that it's not just a money thing, but also that they have the resources in terms of a specialized staff that can actually speak to their genre of music and make sure that we can compete on a global level. And I think that's one thing that I do have power over, and that, I have been working very hard to make sure that that is upfront, that it's understood and communicated.
I can tell that this job to you is not just a job. This is a very personal thing you decided to do here,
Absolutely. And listen, I laugh with Jeffrey all the time, so he knows I mean this with all due respect. I'm not doing this job because of the money, you know what I'm saying? And it's not to say that, listen, this job is a blessing, and it's not to say that it doesn't pay well, but that's not why I'm doing, this job. The one, I think, to give people a kind of a glimpse into my world, being an artist and having the extreme blessing of being able to support my family and provide for my family and friends through my art, and especially even after all this time, is the greatest gift in the world. But what that also does is it allows me to be flexible, because some people, when they have a 9 to 5, they're going to do whatever they can to keep that job, because if they get fired or they're not up to par, like, you know what I mean? They're in the sitcoms way, they're up Schitt's Creek. But, you know, for me, I've always been able to be absolutely transparent, be truthful, and be honest with Jeffrey. And I think that's why our relationship has actually flourished and why we work together so well, is because I'm not afraid to pull any punches and just tell him how I see it. You know what I'm saying? Both as an executive, but also, you know, giving him more of a glimpse into the artist world, you know? And I think it's really important for me to do that. It's a legacy play, because what I want to see is the young Cardinals, the young Drakes, the young Alessia Caras, Biebers, or whoever. I want, you know, for them to feel empowered and feel encouraged and know that they're like, yo, I don't have to leave. You know what I'm saying? There's a team here within Canada that believes in me, not just the same as they do in the States, but even more, because we understand where they come from. And we're going to give them all the tools necessary to finally get that global win that came from right here in Canada. And I think for me, that's what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? Is that legacy play and having things shift and change so that more and more Canada can get those wins, but holistically.
What do you miss about those early days when you were starting out, when you were grinding, when you were, you know?
You know, the other day, I'm not even gonna lie, I might have even shed a tear. I was listening to Socrates, and he had an album where it was a special edition of the album that's I think it's on Spotify. Yeah, I think it's on Spotify and probably the other DSPs. But what it was he kind of gave a story before each song, and he talked about what it was like in the creation of each song, or at least what was going on at the time. And it was so amazing, because I was just thinking back to those times and how naive we were, but how 95% of the reason why we were doing it at that time was because we loved it. We had no idea that this was going to work. We had no idea that it was even possible to sustain a career where you could actually pay a mortgage. You know what I mean? Never mind a few mortgages, or, you know, have a few cars, or, you know, like, look at the heights of where we are now. At the time, it wasn't a thing, because when we were looking ahead, all we saw was, like, not literally, of course, but we just saw bush and trees and jungle, and we couldn't see what the other side looked like. So we just, you know, in essence, just, you know, had a machete, and we were just chopping down as we go. So I think that's probably what I miss the most, is us honestly just being like these very innocent young artists that were really just functioning strictly on a dream. You know, like, to be able to dream that purely, that's what I miss. And I think it's like, once you sign your deal, the innocence goes away. You know, the innocence does go away, and you may never ever get it back. But I think that's what I miss most, is those days of the innocence, and really just being driven by such a, man, I don't know, just such a dream. You know what I mean? That these things that we dream about, we're like, yo, maybe one day it might happen. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, I live an enchanted life, because I don't even think I was dreaming big. I wasn't dreaming big enough at the time, because the amount of things that I have done and seen and continue to see, it's out of this world.
Before we go, I know you have a capsule dropping to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Quest for Fire album.
Oh yes. This is for the people that can see. This is one of the Bacardi slang pieces.
What's a capsule? I know this is the most CBC thing in the world. I don't know what a capsule is.
Oh, a capsule, it's just like a certain, it's a collection. So that's the same thing. That's what this is. This is the Firestarter collection that I'm doing together with Rap and Roll and urbancoolx.com. So, you know, shout out to Connor and my man Dalton Higgins. Like, we all came together, and you're probably like, what does a publicist know about about creating clothes? But shout out to my man Dalton. We actually, you know, we came up in the same neighborhood, and he came to me with this idea. And what's cool about Urban Coolx is that they incorporate AI into their designs and how they make stuff. So it's like basically if you come up with these concepts and designs and feed it into whatever their AI system or what have you, it spits out all these like just different cool designs based on what it thinks you like and what it thinks would look cool and so forth and so forth. So it's really, really amazing, and that's going to be dropping within the next week.
Where does your style come from?
You know what? If I'm being completely honest, I didn't care about style for far too long. So the interesting thing is that I was okay like back in the day with like an oversized white t-shirt, a headband, and a pair of jeans. But there was a guy that I used to be friends with. We've fallen out of touch the last few years, but a designer, his name was Nana Boateng. And I remember Nana said to me, he's like, you have the music of a king, but the clothes of a pauper. And I was like, oh, well, we should fix that. But what was incredible was, I think due to my success, I actually had the monetary means to start to get some custom clothing done, and the funny thing was I did that very early on in my career, and then I kind of abandoned that, but I kind of came back to it with this, together working with Nana with this whole like kind of couture kind of lens. And I remember one of my goals was to become one of the best dressed in Canada. And I remember, I think it was Toronto Life magazine, where there was one year where, sure enough, I became one of the best dressed in Canada. And then the funny thing was after that, I kind of did a blend of the two, you know what I'm saying? So there's sometimes like, during TIFF season typically, or, other big activations where, you'll definitely see me go into my bag, quote unquote, and, talk to some of my designer friends so that I can, have some type of eye-stopping piece. But the other thing that I love, and what I love about this capsule that is happening, is I also love to wear my own brand. And I have a pretty unique and very intentional sense of style. So I think, this is something that, Tom, I'm telling you, and I'm very embarrassed to say, but this may be my actual first merch run. I've never actually cared about merch.
Really?
Never sold it. You come to the shows, there's no t-shirts, there's no
records, I guess, maybe, but no t-shirts, no.
Bro. So this for me, this is actually 20 years. Yeah, 20 years later. I know there's a lot of your listeners are like, this guy's a loser.
Because I've always been told like, oh no, merch is the most important thing, man. It's all merch,
Yeah, well, it is for some artists, and I understand why, because there's some artists that make millions and millions off of merch. So, this is for me like dipping my toe into it and, really just starting to explore that world. So wish me luck. But yes, guys, listen, you can just follow me on my socials at Kardinal O. And that's Kardinal with a K for my East and West Coasters. But just follow me at Kardinal O, and there will definitely be links, links readily available to my merch. And tell me what you think. Tell me if you love it.
We'll post up a link on our socials about that too. You want to play a little game of this or that?
Let's do it.
All right. So, I mean, you're pretty confident about what you like, whether it's fashion, whether it's music, whether it's your current job at Music Exec. We have put together some this is that hip hop / Toronto based questions. You ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Illmatic or Reasonable Doubt?
Illmatic, easy.
Speaking of Jay-Z, are you a Z or a Z person?
Definitely a Z.
You say Z?
Teaching my kids, it doesn't make any sense when you get down to the alphabet, W, X, Y, and Z. It sounds weird. It doesn't work in the song.
I say Z too. In Newfoundland, we say Z.
There you go. That's why I've always loved Newfoundland.
All right. Big Bird or Pokeroo?
Oh. Pokeroo.
All right. The 2019 Raptors or the 92 Blue Jays?
And no context, huh? 2019 Raptors.
Any reason?
Um, I think because it was an absolute first.
Yeah.
Like on various levels, not just sports wise, but even culturally. Think about it like this: when those guys, right before they came to the stage, and it's not, you're probably like, oh, Cardi, you're biased, but it's like the fact that they all licensed my song, the anthem, and played that right before the players got on stage. Like the fact that hip hop was now being incorporated into such a big stage for us, not just nationally, but globally, like for several reasons. I think, that 2019 experience was just one that can't be replicated.
Clarks or Bally's?
Clarks. Now, Bally's, here's the honest truth. When I was young, Bally's were, my favorite artists, like, Slick Rick and those guys. They, like, Bally's were seen as like, they were a big money shoe. But not until, very recently, Swiss Beats did some stuff and redesigned, some Bally's, and kind of brought it, I guess stylistically brought it up into the 2020s or what have you. But I think Clark's, just because of the fact that throughout the Caribbean diaspora, it's like Clark's are the thing. And there's just a lot of history and cultural significance with Clark's.
Specs the Boss or Lindo P?
Oh, come on. Oh. See, I wish this was a drinking game so I could just drink instead.
I can give you a pass if you can have a pass if you want.
Oh man, it would have to be a tie, honestly, and that's very real. Okay. I'm gonna cheat and just give a little bit of reasoning.
Okay.
If we are talking about grassroots, raw, versatility, I will go with Lindo P, because he is an artist as well as a DJ. So he's got a cheat code to where he's able to inject a lot of his artistry and antics into his selecting. But when it comes to Specs the Boss, I mean, listen, these guys are literally world champions and have represented reggae and dancehall music for Canada, like on a global stage. And, Specs is he's a master. You know what I mean? He's honestly a master. So I think they occupy two different spaces, but with equal credibility. So it's a tough one.
That was the one we were like, we don't know what he's going to say to that one.
No,
we don't know what he's going to say to that one.
That's a good one.
Caravana on Lakeshore or Caravana on University?
People will get mad at me. I'm going to say Lakeshore, and I'll tell you why. Caravana on University, that's the authentic, original Caravana experience. And most of us, I'm turning 45 this year, believe it or not. And I remember going down there with my dad and holding his hand while seeing all the floats go by. And, there's nothing like that experience as a little kid. But I mean, being a teenager and going to Caravana, I mean, put it this way, that is prime time testosterone. We are all the way into girls and nothing else matters in the world. Like Caravana on Lakeshore, it's like, I'll give you a quick 15-second story. I'm there with my guy Solitaire, who produced Bacardi Slang, and he meets this girl and he starts dancing with the girl. And he's like, yeah, go ahead. You guys have fun. I'll catch up. We went for like 10 miles, came back 2 hours later. Solitaire's dancing with the same girl in the exact same spot. That's what Caravana on Lakeshore is.
The Six or T-Dot?
It's easy. Toronto.
You got a big neither on that one.
No, I would say T-Dot respectfully, and the Six, they represent eras within the evolution of Toronto.
Yeah.
I don't think one is better than the other. The only thing is, it's like you have some, some people from a young, older generation that are like, what is the Six? It doesn't make any sense. I'm never calling it the Six. What a dumb name. And then you have people that, some of my friends from the younger generation that is just like, T dot is such a dumb name. It's a period. It's not even a dot. And I don't even understand. What is the dot for? Like, there's silly arguments for both. But what I tell people is I'm like, listen, I don't care what you call it as long as your love for the city is the same. Call it what you want.
Do you say curry chicken or chicken curry?
Oh, listen, Tom, don't let them suck you up into that silly argument. It is such a silly argument. Obviously, we say curry chicken or curry goat or curry shrimp, because if you said it the other way, it's implying that that's the flavor of the curry. If you have shrimp curry, it's the type of curry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you got to think about it that way. Like goat curry, I'm like, oh, that must be an interesting kind of curry that you're having. But it's curried goat, just like it's jerked chicken. It's the act of currying said goat or currying the chicken. So don't let those Guyanese folks rope you in with their backwards vernacular.
I just got a note that says Melanie Fiona would disagree.
Melanie Fiona would disagree. She is lovely. She is beautiful and intelligent and one of my closest friends. But she is also dead wrong and unfortunately was born into Guyanese lineage. And there's nothing that she can do about it. So we have to give her a pass.
Fried plantain or plantain?
Oh, gosh. When you go at school and there's the water apparatus, what do you call it?
The fountain. Plantain. That's how I feel about Ontarians saying tour. Doesn't make any sense to me. Newfoundlanders say tour, T-O-R-E.
Right. I'm going on tour. That's how I say it.
I find a lot of people in Ontario say, I'm going on tour.
Really?
And I say, you don't say 1, 2, 3, fooer.
You know what? That's probably those guys that are the people that live in Northern Ontario.
Yeah.
So shout out to Thunder Bay.
Last one. Beef patties from Warden Station or Bathurst Station?
That's a trick question because they're the same patty.
You are right. It's a trick question because they're the same patty.
I would only say Bathurst Station only because it's closer, but it's the same patty.
That's a beautiful thing. Cardi, nice to talk to you. Thanks for your time today.
Man, listen, TP, this was a great time, and hopefully before the year is over, there are some amazing things that are going to be happening throughout this year, and hopefully our good friend Ford can get it right, and we have a little bit more freedom towards the end of the year, but hopefully we can have another convo before the year's over.
I'd love for you to come in and we can listen to some more music, and we can come up with some more This Is That for you.
And listen, I will say, I've had that, it hasn't necessarily been called this or that, but yours is absolutely the best. Like those were great. It's usually very easy. I'm usually like, whatever, but those are actually great. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Kardinal Offishall is celebrating 20 years of the quest for fire, Firestarter Volume 1, and has a new position at Universal Music Canada.